So good afternoon or good evening, class. I just wanted to go over this gross rent multiplier sheet that I sent earlier today. In our class, the first class that we had a young lady by the name Kyla. She had recently taken the test, and she had said that she saw a few gross rent multiplier questions on the test. So it's unlikely that you get a whole lot of these questions on the test, but such an easy calculation. I wanted to go over it, and it should be something that you ladies should be able to capture fairly well and easy. So pretty much what the gross rent multiplier is a simple method which you can estimate the market value of an income producing property. This gross rent multiplier is market driven. So what that means is you're going to get your data from the market. Most of the time you're looking for properties that have closed and you know the gross rents for the property. If you look at the MLS, sometimes they'll show, say for instance, a double or a multifamily property, and you'll see the rents and the gross rents, and the realtor did a good job at explaining, how the property was cash flowing. So you would take that property, if you had a property in a similar neighborhood or in that neighborhood, and you would just do an analysis of that property and a few other properties to kind of come up with a multiplier. Now, again, it's market driven, so you want a large enough sample size when you're trying to use the gross rent multiplier, meaning that you don't want to just use one or two properties. First off, you want to have a large enough sample size, and also you want to make sure that the properties are similar. You don't really want to be trying to use the gross rent multiplier with something that's like a six-wheeler trying to compare it to a double, or using a double to compare it to a six-wheeler. The management and the ability and the utility of those properties are a bit different, and the management could be also different. Whereas you don't need a property management company for a 2-unit, but you would need one for a 6 or 7-suiter or something like that. And that's really the drawback of the gross rent multiplier using it, because the gross rent multiplier doesn't account for expenses. Now, when you're using this multiplier, it's a very, very simple calculation. The most important thing is typically in real estate, something so simple doesn't necessarily always yield the most accurate and appropriate value that you use. In this class, throughout the class, I'm going to be showing you different ways to value properties, some of which I'll give you a couple examples. As realtors, we really look at price per square foot. So you can do look at a number of comps and see what the price per square foot is on the sales price at some of these comps that you're looking at. So price per square foot would be one way. Sales to assessment ratio would be one way in analysis. You would look at just a basic CMA. That's another good way of valuing properties. We have the gross rent multiplier. So there's a number of ways that you can value a property. And I never really hang my hat on any particular way to value properties. What I do is typically I'll do a number of different methodologies, and then you'll start to see some commonalities in terms of the data and the numbers that's coming back. And then you just got to weight it. You got to weight it on, and when I mean weighted, you just got to pick you typically, when you're looking at properties, you're going to create a range. You'll have a low end and then you'll have a high end. And depending on how good the location is, how good the condition is, you would weight it either on the low end or the high end, or somewhere in the middle. So with the gross rent multiplier, it's a quick analysis that you really can just, do really quick. And then in some of these examples, I'm going to show you what I mean. So let me start sharing my screen here. Let me go to the questions. Excuse me. So the first question is, I want to just go over this briefly with you here. The first question: Mike owns a property that is valued at $385,000 and generates an annual income of $79,000. Mike's building expenses run $2,800 per month, leading to a net income of $45,400. Calculate the gross rent multiplier. Now, this is a typical question that you'll probably see on a test with unnecessary information. Just earlier, I had told you that the expenses is the drawback. The lack of accounting for expenses is the drawback of the gross rent multiplier. Now, it's right in the name, gross rent. So if you're taking out or accounting for expenses, it's not gross rent. Now, when we get into talking about NOI and net operating income and things like that, we will have to deal with expenses, and we will have to deal with like operating expenses. And then we'll also have to deal with vacancies and income loss. But we're not there yet. The gross rent multiplier is meant to be a simple analysis to where you just look at the gross rents and to try to derive a market value or potential sales price. But so this whole sentence here is completely unnecessary in this sentence because we don't care what the net income is. A gross rent multiplier. So this is typical with what you'll see on a real estate exam, and I want to be able to help you ladies to understand how to decipher these questions. This is a simple equation. Mike owns a property that is valued at $385,000 and generates an annual income of $79,000. The equation is simple. Value divided by gross rents equal gross rent multiplier, or GRM. So we take the 385,000 divided by 79, and you come up with a multiplier of 4.78 or 4.87. I'm sorry about that. And so that's a pretty easy calculation. You take the value divided by the gross rents, and you're going to come up with the answer of for your property. $385,000 divided by 79,000 is a multiplier of 4.87. The next question is very similar to this question. Again, let's break it down. Melanie owns a property that is valued at $750,000 and generates an annual income of $105,000. Melanie's building expenses run $4,500 per month, leading to a net income of $54,000. Calculate the gross rent multiplier. Again, same step. Value divided by gross rents equal the gross rent multiplier, or 750,000 divided by 105,000 equals a 7.14 gross rent multiplier. Simple math. Again, it's a layered question with unnecessary information that we don't even really need to consider. That's one big part of passing this test, is to know exactly what to extrapolate out of the question to get you to the answer that you need to get to, because this is an unnecessary portion of the question, and that's what they do to kind of confuse you and trip you up during a test. Let's look at the next question. If the GRM on a given property is 9.225 and is applied to a subject property that generates $2,425 monthly, what is the value of the subject property? All right, now in this one, they're giving us the growth. What are they giving us? This is different than these two problems up here, right? This is different than these two. So again, let's read the question. If the gross rent multiplier on a given property is 9.225 and is applied to the subject property that generates $2,425 a month, or $2,425 a month, what is the value of the subject property? We got a couple steps that we have to do here. So the gross rent multiplier, now what are we trying to find in this? We're trying to find the value of the subject property, but we have to do some converting, mainly the monthly income. We want to do this into an annual income, because if you leave it monthly, it'll be a much higher multiplier than doing it annually. And that's another thing. When you're working with the analysis, you want to be on the same frequency. If you're using the gross rent multiplier, you're just looking at now you can use the monthly rent, all right, but the multiplier is going to be higher, right? Because it's only 1 month. Whereas if you're taking a gross rent multiplier over 12 months or annually, it's going to be a little bit lower. So gross rent multiplier here is going to be it's going to be 9.225, and we have to convert this monthly income into an annual income. So let's do that first. The first step is figure out the annual gross rent. So $2,425 times 12 equals $29,100. So that is the first part of the equation. So the $29,100 is our annual income that the property produces, or gross income. No expenses have been taken out of that number. Now let's go back to the question. We know what the multiplier is, 9.225, And so the answer is just simply multiplying this, the 29,000 or the gross rent or annually times the multiplier. Here's the equation. 9.225 times $29,100 equals a value of $268,447. That's the value of or projected sales price of this property. Okay, so that's pretty simple. We'll go to the next question. Fred's property is valued at $239,000. The annual gross income is $18,000. Building expenses are $750 per month, leading to a net income of $9,000. Again, we don't care about net income. We're looking for gross income or the gross rent multiplier. And the expenses don't matter because they're not accounted for in the gross rent multiplier. That's why it's such an easy calculation. Calculate the gross rent multiplier. So here's the equation. Value divided by gross rent equals gross rent multiplier. So we know, going back to the question, that the value of the property is $239,000. That's what it probably sold for. And most of the time, you're going to be dealing with properties that are sold, and you know what the sales price is, and you know what the annual income is. In this case, let's treat it that way. So 239,000 divided by 18,000 equals the GRM, or 13.8 or 28. 13.28 is the multiplier for that. This question is very similar to the first two. All right, and now here's another one that's going to be probably a little similar to the other two, and it's not really different many ways. That you can figure out the income, all right, or how much income it produces. What do you use? The sales price and the multiplier. You can figure out the sales price. What do you use? You use the income, and you use a multiplier. If you want to figure out what the multiplier is, you need the sales price or value, and the income. Those are the only three things that you can do with a gross rent multiplier. All right, here's the next one. Lisa owns a rental property, and a GRM, or gross rent multiplier, derived on the property is 7.242 and is applied to the subject property that generates $1,600 monthly. All right, what is the value of the subject property? Now, again, we got to do some converting. First thing we got to do is turn this monthly income into an annual income. We do that by taking 1,600 times 12 right here. So you go 1,600 times 12, that equals 19,200. Now, what we got to do with that 19,200 is we need to apply our gross rent multiplier that he gave us earlier in the problem. So the equation is, or the answer is 7.242 times the 19,200. The value of this property is just over 139,000 at $139,046. Typically, when you're valuing stuff, you'll round to the nearest hundred or nearest thousands. In this case, I probably would just say the value of the property was $139,000. So that's a pretty simple way. Now, this one here, we have the income. Well, we're looking for the income, so we have the value in the gross rent multiplier. Right? Bill and his brother own another property valued at $900,000. Calculate their gross rent if the property has a GRM of 9.5. So we got the equation. Income equals value divided by gross rent multiplier. Right? So we know the property is worth $900,000 here, and we're going to divide that by the 9.5 gross rent multiplier. We will get an answer of $94,736. Right? So again, there's only three ways you can do it. If they're asking for the income, you're going to take the value divided by the gross rent multiplier. That's going to give you the income. If they're asking for the gross rent multiplier, like they are up here, you're going to take the value divided by the gross rents to get the multiplier. And now they have, where's the other one at here? All right. So you may be looking for the value of the property. That's what I was looking for, which the value equals what we say, the gross rent times the annual income, the gross rent multiplier times the annual income to get the value of the property. So some helpful notes with this process is the gross rent multiplier does not account for expenses. It's the weakness of the gross rent multiplier methodology. And I'm gonna just give you an example. You have a client on the phone and he wants to know, quickly what he could expect to probably buy a property for. And it's in the neighborhood. Say, for instance, he or she's looking to buy a double or a triplex in Cleveland Heights. Well, sales of those types of properties are in abundance in Cleveland Heights. So you would go to the market, you would go and you would look at some sales, and you would get you would pull down the properties that had the gross rent showing, and also you knew what the sales price was. So you get 4, 5, 6 of those properties. Again, you have to determine the sample size depending on how good you think the data is. And you'll get about 5 or 6 of those. You'll do an analysis and you simply be able to tell him, based on the gross rents, this is how much these properties have been selling for. And that's an example of when you would be using the gross rent multiplier. But right here, the gross rent multiplier also it's used for income producing properties, right? You're not going to be able to use this on something trying to figure out what your client that's looking for an owner occupied situation to buy the property. Now, most of the time, income producing properties are going to be your 2-family and up, 2-family, 3-family, 4-suiters, 5-suiters, and things like that. But over the past decade or so, a number of single family properties have been started to become rental properties. And so you could use the gross rent multiplier to analyze a single family home. But for me, I typically like to just do a CMA on closed sales of single family homes and not really look at the income, because the income sometimes don't really give you a true accurate value of some single family homes that provide utility and use for the owners. And so, yeah, you could do it with single family homes, but I would stick to just doubles, triplexes, 4-suiters, multi-unit residential properties. Now, below here, right here where it says sample gross rent multipliers, the sample size is 5 properties. My first property is 4.87. The second property that I analyzed is 5.15. The third property I analyzed is 3.85. The fourth property I analyzed is 4.25. And then the last one was 6.25. The one thing that's important about sample size is you don't want properties that, say for instance, I had 10 properties here, and one of them was like 1.7 and another one was like 14.5. So those are extreme. The 1.7 is the lowest on here, and the 14.5 is extremely higher than the others. Typically, when you're filtering your data and cleaning your data, you want to get rid of the low and the high, because those can skew the data set. And so let me just give you an example of what I mean. So like, say up here, this one was 1.87. And then down here, you had one that was 14.5. These are multipliers. Well, they look so drastically different than these 5 in the middle. You probably are going to want to get rid of this low one because there's probably something wrong with that one. And you want to get rid of the high one, and it's just probably something that's going to skew your data to the point where it's really not going to be reliable at that point. So I just wanted to show you that, and that's how you kind of filter the data. And so these 5 properties added up equals 24.37 divided by 5. I get an average gross rent multiplier of 4.874. So if I had a property that was producing $75,000 in annual income, and I apply my 4.874 multiplier, that property would be worth around $365,500. This one's $550. So this is a really quick worksheet and an analysis on how you utilize the gross rent multiplier. If you have any questions, you can email or text me the questions, but I just wanted to take some time out to explain that. The gross rent multiplier is a useful tool, but not the only tool that you should rely on when you're analyzing properties and this is probably going to be for an investor, but it's just a good tool to have in your toolbox to kind of show that you got the skill set to help some of these investors make some financial decisions about properties. So this will conclude this video and this audio. And you ladies have a good rest of your evening. Thank you for viewing the video.